Bad short-term rental regulation is like having a heart attack. You don't think about it at all up until the moment that it happens, from which point on you pretty much can't look at life the same way again. And I know this because several people close to me have had heart attacks. And I know this because I was sitting at my desk at my vacation rental business in Panama. Somebody knocked on the door, walked in, handed me a piece of paper saying we were operating illegally, along with another piece of paper with a several $100,000 fine. Now, of course, I refused to pay it, and it was only the beginning of the fight, but it changed the way we fundamentally looked at our lifestyles and our business. We simply never looked at things the same way again. Heart attacks have preventative measures. You can eat better, you can exercise. And poor regulation has preventative measures too. It's called advocacy. The only problem is that in our industry, we are so new that few good advocacy practices exist. Very rarely do you hear from advocacy specialists who want to share what worked in their region so that it might work in yours. This is a special Unlocked episode, and I'm just getting over a cold, so you may be able to hear it in my voice. I'm also editing my own podcast. My team is on break, so if you hear any weird sound effects, you're welcome. We're going to talk about the Vacation Rental Advocacy Playbook, a game changer for vacation rental entrepreneurs.
Hi, my name is Matt Landau. I'm the founder of VRMB and The Inner Circle, the most independent group of vacation rental professionals online. And this is Unlocked, the Tiny Architects edition, in which we travel to meet some of my contemporaries in their element and find out what makes them so special. This is Unlocked.
So as you may have guessed, this is not a normal Unlocked episode. I am my own contemporary today. In fact, I'm my own contemporary always. Today's episode talks about something that's really important in our industry, something that deserved its own special podcast edition, and that is advocacy, the act of standing up and representing the best of what you, your business, your industry have to offer. And unfortunately, advocacy is an area that our industry has fallen short over the years. Now, granted, that's natural. We are new, we are fragmented, we are all still trying to find our place. And when you're busy, it's easy for things like advocacy to fall through the cracks. But not unlike the example that I gave at the beginning of this podcast of an health scare. If we don't put in the right preventative mechanisms now, if we don't prepare ourselves, we are opening ourselves up to huge threats that are currently sinking owners and managers in various destinations. It's fair to say that if your destination has not had to deal with the advocacy battle just yet, you probably will, like this year. And because it's such a big threat, we need to begin thinking about it. Because there are no active solutions, we need to create them. Now, there are a couple people who are doing great work in our industry, and I don't want to take anything away from their accomplishments in this regard. In fact, a number of them are mentioned in today's episode. But when I ask myself, what would the single best tool be? The most impactful thing that we could arm independent owners and managers throughout the world with in terms of better advocacy, I sort of dreamt up this scenario in which we could have 20 of the United States' best advocacy experts, the individuals who have achieved the most, both the professionals who do this for a living, but also the owners and the managers who have stepped up and just become remarkable leaders in their area. My dream was to invite all of these individuals into one room and to actually record their plays or initiatives, the things that worked in their areas, and to share all those plays somewhere central and open and free. This project actually happened with the help of several sponsors, Expedia Group, Avalara, My Lodge Tax, AirDNA, and Rent Responsibly, we were able to host a beautiful luncheon in New Orleans several days ahead of VRMA International. And the plan for the afternoon was for each of the individuals to get up and share their best practices, to record those best practices on camera with my amazing film team, and then to share the videos freely with anybody in our industry who wanted to replicate that success. The result of that project is now live. It's called the Vacation Rental Advocacy Playbook, and you can access it by heading over to www.vacationrentaladvocacy.com. I always like saying www real fast. But anyway, I thought it might be cool to make the Unlocked listeners aware of this playbook first and foremost. Again, if advocacy hasn't been a subject in your area, now it must be. And if you are in the middle of some sort of battle, advocacy is exactly what you need. I pulled 20 of my favorite plays from the playbook and posted them on VRMB. You can see that post at vrmb.com/advocacy. Mind you, that's www.vrmb.com/advocacy. I'm going to go over briefly each of those plays here and now for you. For those of you who don't like to look at a computer, those of you who are planting tulips, those of you who are driving your children to school. But as I share them with you, begin to think about whether or not you have done this in your area. And if you have, fantastic. And if you haven't, think about making a move sometime very soon in the best interest of your collective survival. Let's get started with one of my absolute favorites. These are all my favorites, but she's especially favorite to me. Megan McCrae of Nashville Short-Term Rental Association in Nashville, Tennessee, is incredible. She shared the tip of how to get her core stakeholders in her area actually to show up at her meetings. These are independent owners and managers who are benefiting from NASTRA's services, and yet Megan was struggling to actually get them to show up and support. This play goes through some of the tactics that Megan and her team used to start seeing full meetings, and that was an amazing and pivotal thing. Eric Bay from the Alliance for Neighborhood Prosperity here in New Orleans. I loved his play on presenting fact-based studies. Eric said, it's one thing to present a theoretical idea of what might happen or what could happen to legislators or to fellow stakeholders. But what was far more compelling and effective, according to Eric, was presenting fact-based studies. Nothing, Eric said, can be compared to facts when making this kind of argument. Jennifer Frankenstein of Florida Vacation Rental Managers Association. I loved hers, which was all about giving back to the community. She argued that as responsible, contributing members of society, we as vacation rental business owners need to actively give back in order to earn clout, in order for our arguments, our conversations at the table to be taken seriously. Steve Milo from V-Trips. I loved his, which was all about creating economic impact studies. These are paid studies done by professional, or in some cases academic, firms. And having an economic impact study that showed the results of short-term rentals on any given destination was a really important tool in Steve's Florida tool chest. Greg Holcomb of VRMA presented the idea of writing a policy white paper. He basically explained that you can't just cross your fingers and hope that a local legislator or councilman or councilwoman is going to come up with the right policy. You actually need to proactively create an example for them to work off of. Derek Eaton from Seattle Short-Term Rental Alliance, who I've actually visited and I've seen Derek's advocacy work up close, he featured my favorite tip of all: make bright green t-shirts. Of course, green can be substituted for the color of your destination, but Derek argued that printing out neon green shirts was an amazing way for the courtroom when individual owners and managers showed up to testify, for individuals to see how unified this cause was, for them to see visually how passionate short-term rental hosts were. Alexa Nota of the Chapel Hill Short-Term Rental Alliance, she could not speak highly enough about forming a confidential member group, a place online where you and your fellow owners and managers can actually communicate and share concerns that is not in the public eye, because inevitably someone who should not be there will make their way into that group. David Krause of Rent Responsibly and Noise Aware explained to us the power of a Good Neighbor Summit. This is an actual event that takes place in an area that aims to educate and unite independent owners and managers. Dave, on behalf of Rent Responsibly, was also one of the sponsors of this event. Give him a big shout out there. Ben Edwards of Weatherby Consulting, to whom I send a number of independent owners and managers looking to sell their businesses, looking to exit. Ben came up with a great idea of building a simple sandwich board. Ben would place outside of the local post office where every resident would pass. He set up a little table with a sandwich board that offered to answer questions representing the legal and responsible vacation rentals of the area, and showing some statistics that were pretty compelling, and showing some statistics like only several hundred vacation rentals existed in a destination with over 8,000 homes. Cliff Johnson of rented.com explained to us the power of building a list of local businesses. Back when he was with Vacasa, Cliff said that uniting all the local business owners in an area, the individuals who benefit off of vacation rental travelers, was a powerful way to unite the region, and that building that list actually in a document or on a piece of paper was the first step. Matt Curtis of Smart City Policy Group, Matt does this for a living. It was awesome to have him there. Matt explained that a decision matrix, looking at your decisions through certain kinds of filters, such as, is this information statistically relevant? Is it positive? Is it proactive? These were questions that, if you are checking off the boxes in each of your advocacy activities, can guarantee that you are thwarting those against you. Scott Shatford of AirDNA, another wonderful sponsor of this event. My favorite play from him was to follow the money. Scott argued that if you could follow the stream of dollar signs, it would actually lead you to the people that are making the decisions and the people that are influencing them. This is a great tip for vacation rental alliances. If the hotel lobbies are paying councilmen and councilwomen to make decisions, perhaps you need to think about how you can change that. Jacob Hubert from the Goldwater Institute, he shared how important stories were, how humanizing your vacation rental role was a really important part of his, as a lawyer, process of communicating the importance and emotion behind any small business. Steve Del Bianco, president of Net Choice, helped us see how exposing statements by big hotel executives could be incredibly impactful. Steve says that most of these hotel executives are stupid enough on their calls with investors to explain, to articulate how short-term rentals are threatening their business, and that using those quotes in your arguments up against them can be a very beneficial thing. Phil Minardi of the Expedia Group, one of the other sponsors of our event, argued that creating a local alliance is probably the most primordial thing that a destination can do. It is both literally and figuratively the voice that represents short-term rentals in a region. And if you don't have that, you have no voice. Phil explained how his LIFT acronym, which stands for looking for leaders, looking for impacted partners, finding friends, And lastly, building trust, LIFT, was the tactic that Expedia Group uses to support these kinds of advocacy groups. Rob Stevens of Avalara, My Lodge Tax, one of the other sponsors of our event, Rob said that seeking legal clarification could be tremendously helpful. So that oftentimes things can become obfuscated, I believe was the word that he used. I remember it because I don't think I've ever heard that word before. He argued that seeking some clarification in legal terms, whether from a lawyer or actually getting something in writing, is way more valuable than hearsay. Florian Stitch of AirDNA, a humble scholar of this event in his own words, helped us see how using data to approach the over-tourism argument could be a very powerful thing. AirDNA is, of course, a data powerhouse and one of the sponsors of this event. And Flo basically explained that over-tourism could be argued against using data, showing that vacation rentals maybe don't contribute directly nearly as much as towns argue they do. That was 20 of my favorite plays from a playbook that has many, many more. And I wanted to thank each of these experts who took time out of their busy schedules to meet with this bald guy right here in a room in New Orleans. There were windows, but it was intense. I'd like to thank also the sponsors that I've mentioned in this podcast and, of course, my video team that was able to capture all of the wisdom. The purpose of the Vacation Rental Advocacy Playbook is to be a version 1.0, a central hub of advice and best practices that seem to have worked for these individuals in their respective destinations. But we also want to build on it. We'd like for this playbook to become more robust, more textured. We'd like to have perspectives of individuals from all different parts of the world. So if you are hosting an advocacy event anytime soon and would like to contribute some of your wisdom to the next version of the Advocacy Playbook, feel free to shoot me an email, Matt with 2 T's at vrmb.com. Don't include the wwws. And I'd also like to encourage you to take an hour of your busy week, sit down and browse through some of the plays. www.vacationrentaladvocacy.com. Or if you want to see the actual videos that I've featured here today, head over to vrmb.com/advocacy. I recently sent it over to somebody whose destination was under siege from the hotel lobbies. And I said, take a look at this playbook. And he said, there's like almost 100 plays. And I said, yes, that's the magic of it. It's worth the time to see how these advocacy specialists have achieved real results. I mean, if you don't have time to do that, what do you have time for? So take some time, browse through the playbook. It's divided neatly into categories, and it's also powered by TouchStay, which is a digital welcome book, which is increasingly working towards content organization. Andy and his team have contributed that technology for us, the ability to browse through these brilliant plays easily. He's provided it to us free of charge. Another very generous gesture, just like all the other people who have participated here. And I'd like to encourage you to see 2020 as your year of advocacy, whether you are a single property owner or a manager of several thousand. Your business and your life will change the moment bad regulation comes to town. I know because I went through it myself. It changed the way that we operated forever. Doing good advocacy practices now will mitigate those risks, but they will not eliminate them. Chances are, if you are not dealing with some kind of regulation problem right now, you will be soon. These are all good reasons to begin practicing better advocacy measures. Just like a heart attack, you want to be as healthy as possible so that if something like that happens, you have your best chances at success.